Yes. Mostly did it perfectly.
It looked beautiful.
It wasn't great, yeah.
I loved it.
Oh my god, I just every time I get to have that music go for the intro, I'm just so happy that Ben gave it to me. Ben was one of our previous guests. If you ever go back and watch that episode, it was a really great one. It was on Project Hummingbird, which is security related and very topical for us. So really quickly, hello GitOpsians, good whatever time it is wherever you are. No announcements today. This is our first stream back since the last one in April. I did have a surgery. I was out for a while. And then it was just like a scheduling thing, getting something on the schedule, figuring out what we were doing. And I changed completely what I was planning to do for today after I went to a conference called Sec Nerds, Security Nerds in San Francisco last weekend, where I met our good friend Tom, who is our guest today. And it was pretty great because Tom and I were the last two talks of the conference, and they couldn't have been more accidentally complimentary if we had tried. So I'm going to let Tom introduce himself real quick, and then I think we'll start getting into the meat of our presentation, explaining what we presented at Sec Nerds and how this created a okay, wait a minute, let's try this for realsies conversation.
No, fantastic. So I really appreciate it. Everybody, GitOpsians. I'm Tom Goodheart. I work at a place in finance, doing finance security things, building out detection engineering teams. I have an economics background and a finance background, so kind of randomly walking my way into the security field has been a pretty joyous experience in my life. And I tend to Venn diagram over a lot of other functions inside of security because I don't know when to stop doing things, which is why most of my projects have like offense, defense, purple team applications to it, because there's a lot of different ways that we get to sharpen each other's swords. And yeah, no, that's kind of me.
So I think most people who watch this stream have probably been longtime viewers, but if you are a new viewer here, hi, welcome. So my role is I'm a senior principal site reliability engineer at Red Hat, which is a big mouthful of words. And as a reliability engineer, like theoretically, software performance and stability is the thing I care about the most. But you can't not care about security in that role. A lot of security functions end up happening in reliability engineering, sometimes being caught by reliability engineering. And so like there's that kind of that general partnership. And you know, we would be the ones who would get alerted if there's something like a DDoS, right? We would be the ones who would respond to the pager at 3 a.m. for that. So that was kind of I do a lot in terms of security and compliance in my role today. I work on a product that's highly secure and compliant theoretically. It's called Azure Red Hat OpenShift. It is highly compliant. Like I always tell people, FedRAMP moderate is our floor. It is an Azure product, so there's like a lot of certifications there, and we absolutely do our best to make sure that it is secure. Are we going to be perfect? I certainly hope so. But you know what? We never. New things happen all the day. Quantum computing is coming our way. It's gonna be really an interesting time in my field, security adjacent as it is. So that said, quantum computing AI. That was a little bit about what I was thinking about when I developed my talk. And then I ended up actually kind of changing my speaker's notes a little bit, like on the fly, because Tom had this really cool thing that he's about to. I'm gonna enable your screen share if you're ready.
Yep.
Really cool thing, kind of like I was saying, like a sort of a pseudo red team scenario that he had explained that he'd done for a friend, and I was like, I would like to be your friend. I would like to be the next friend.
It's a great way to find new friends when somebody goes, "Hey, is anybody around to attack my VPS? I'm giving a demonstration for how a honeypot works," and just telling me I have total like free wheel to attack you in any way humanly possible, as long as it's across one protocol. I forgot about that in the beginning. I'm sorry, Lauren. But yeah, it was a great time. I had a great time doing this, and it kind of spurred me on into combining a couple of projects that I was working on at the time. Like I fell in love with NixOS as soon as I kind of saw it. I was an old Parrot OS kind of a guy, or like an Arch guy, so I couldn't not tell people I was using that operating system when I was doing it. And I kind of just sat down with my French intern, Claude, and was like, hey, man, I really enjoy this operating system, but I'm getting really into this kind of a thing. I like the reproducible builds of it. can you just port this entire OS and all the tools that are into it into this virtual machine that I'm running right now? And then we're going to attack my friend's VPS server with it. And Claude, like the good agent that it was, totally did. And I only got a message from Anthropic after we had created all that traffic for that wonderful person who asked me to do this. But we do have a GitHub for this thing. It's under my GitHub handle for NixOS pen test. And it's really just replacing Parrot security with reproducible NixOS pen test VM. And just because I work in finance, it's going to be a little disclaimer because my opinion, I have opinions, people have opinions, and they all can conflict sometimes. But all the views that I have are mine and not representative of my company or anything else inside of the finance industry or any of the three-letter agencies in any country that might be watching this right now. Hi, Dave. Hi, Joe. Remember, crime is still a crime, even if it's funny. So how this really started, I kind of talked about in the beginning that it was a friend requesting that we could generate some SSH traffic for the honeypot that they had created. They were doing a presentation for a class that they were in or teaching at the time. And I kind of started thinking of like different ways to generate unique traffic. And I didn't want to just do like, all right, let's just take like the normal word list that comes inside of sec lists, or I don't know if anybody on the stream knows what payload all the things is in a GitHub, but that's another wonderful way that you can get different payloads to start throwing at people. I kind of sat down and was like, well, I've got this machine on my network that I don't remember the password for. And I know I took a quote from a book and I translated it into a different language. And oh, wait, I have this inexhaustible coding agent that could like build the project out for me and solve some of these issues that are there. So that's kind of how this thing called Book Crack came about. And I wanted to do different types of IPs flying at my friend's system. So I figured, well, Tor would be one way to do it. And if I use multiple Tors, that'd be great. So there was the way that multi-Tor was born. I am still learning NixOS. It's got its own language that's inside of there. An engineer that pulled me aside one time at a local New York meetup was like, hey, why are you doing this? You're just making your engineers like learn a new language and things like that. And I was like, well, it's just solely existing on my home network, and the only torture that's happening is to myself. So I started migrating most of my systems into this kind of thing. The NixOS community is really, really fun. Like I saw a tweet from Kelsey Hightower that it wasn't a tweet, it would have been a skeet because it was Blue Sky, that he was like presenting at one of the conferences. And I knew if this guy was doing something, I was on the right path because I followed that man into the sun. But it's really, really cool because you could have a couple of configuration files get controlled so that you can deploy repeatable things in repeatable ways for repeatable operations. So I figured that was a real powerful way to get through things. In a former life, I was a pen tester. I did build my own systems to try and do this. And going in between different operations while I was performing a pen test was kind of an issue that would occur if I was spinning a new machine up from scratch. I would forget which different systems or which different tools or which different services I needed to have going. And maintaining that bash script became a little bit of an onerous task. And I like the way that Nix's environment works in that kind of way for giving you a reproducible way of getting this thing done. Now, in my day-to-day life, I run a detection engineering team. And one of the things that I'm really concerned with is the accuracy of the detections that I get and the results of tests that we perform. So I'm really into mimicking the environment as closely as humanly possible so that I can get this breach and attack simulation system running pretty smoothly and pretty close to what we're actually running, so that when we roll a detection out, we don't inundate the teams with a whole bunch of spurious noise and a lot of different traffic that's coming at them. So the better part of after getting the SSH word list generator and traffic going and getting the operating system the way that I wanted it to, I started spinning up an environment inside of AWS per test to make sure that this thing was working, and realized that if I change a couple of the things out inside of what gets spun up inside of the things that get spun up, I can really reproduce some of the environments that I'm looking at right now. So one of the next versions of this project is going to include the ability to choose different devices from VulnHub so that you could set up an environment or a testing environment or a training environment in a way that you actually want. I'm going to try and hook Claude back into this so that it can output things that I use personally at work that I've used in a couple of different jobs called alerting detection sheets or alerting detection strategies. They come from a Palantir project. It's up on GitHub. You can download that thing. It gives you a couple of different ways that you could roll a detection out with bare minimums in the framework so that you know you're rolling something out that can describe what's supposed to happen, what an analyst is supposed to see, what false positives look like, what validation looks like, and what they're supposed to do in response to seeing something that actually occurs on their network. Another reason that this kind of came up is I kind of think most distros, not just pen test distros, are broken. NixOS tries to fix this because there's always that problem that upgrade drift is going to break everything that exists inside of your tools. You might have one version pinned inside of a thing that you think is up to date, and then some random developer or some maintainer of the project gets a real good shot of coffee inside of them and changes a whole bunch of things inside of the tooling system, pushes a couple of new versions up, and it might break what you're doing at the time. It also reduces that works on my machine excuse for things where if I send somebody this configuration file for the Nix configuration or configuration.nix and the flake file that runs all these projects, I know within certain bounds what will break inside of that building process, so that if they encounter any hiccups, or if I've encountered any hiccups during that fix or the build, I can fix those things and roll out a new version pretty efficiently. It does do, it takes care of those one-off pip and git installs, so you can set everything up inside of scripts, so that if I have a whole bunch of other tools, there's like 80 plus tools inside of the Parrot OS environment that need git to be installed or pip to be installed and put inside of the system, you can take care of that with your setup script itself. And then if something breaks, you can just rebuild from the ISO itself if it's in there. Nix has a very powerful way of rolling forward and rolling back. I tend to break a lot of my system. Like, this is the system that's running my laptop for this right now. So every time that things do change, it's something I consider. The original built this stuff on was actually the VM I was changing everything on for my laptop to check to make sure that it worked before I rolled it out onto my laptop itself, so that I didn't look like a fool when I brought my laptop anywhere. But I'm a Tom, and things go sideways sometimes, so the fool still exists. So for the demo,
hang on.
Yep.
That is such a good pun.
Which?
The I'm a Tom, so and the fool still exists. Tomfoolery. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh man, I have a shirt that says "Call me Tom" because I'm all about that foolery, and it's like a little magical frog. If I was thinking better, I would have not worn the cybercrime shirt, and I would have worn the tomfoolery one. I don't even know I was making that pun.
You didn't even. Oh my gosh, no! That one cracked me. I love a good pun. Pun, dad joke, 10 of 10. No notes, perfect.
I'll do my best to be pun believable during this entire time.
Anyway, no. So since I do have you stop before we go to the thing, and I want to recognize, like, you're not an engineer and so forth. So there could be like completely like.
No, very, very frighteningly, I'm an economist. This should like pull everybody back and like take a step back to think. This is what happens when somebody that knows Excel and VBA just doesn't stop. We're like, oh, what can I do with this? What can I do with this? What can I do with this? Oh, I broke things.
Yeah, so I was just kind of wondering why you went with NixOS instead of containerization.
Well, I kind of moved away from like Docker after a little while, and other different types of systems that were set up, because I run like a 5-node Proxmox cluster inside of my house. So most of the containerization that I do is the containers that are inside of there. And I can put containers underneath there. There are some systems that run in my house with Docker just because that's the way that the Git told me to install it. But I just thought it would be fun. I was trying to learn this thing as it is. I can't run an entire operating system on a laptop on Docker as far as I know, even though there is a 4-node Talos OS cluster inside of my house. So that I can learn how that and Falco and that type of detection logic works as well. But that was pretty much the main way of doing it. Like in the pen testing company that I was at, I pretty much ran everything inside of Docker because it also did that little repeatable declarative way of getting tools running. But I just didn't think about it during this time because I was really distracted with, hey, what can Claude do? Let's keep it going.
Well, yeah, and like you said, you were. This is an experiment you did, one, to help a friend, and two, to learn a new operating system, which is completely valid. Is just because it's fun is a completely valid reason to not use containerization, right? Like there's, I wanted to just be very clear. Like I was curious to see if you had thought about it beyond anything or like so on. Everything that you did could be containerized, and of course, I wouldn't be a Red Hatter if I didn't tell you Podman is a thing.
Yes, it is. Well, I haven't been using that one for a bit though, so I do feel bad. No, there is we have to use it at work. I do know that one. So you guys are in our environment that way.
Yeah, it's the for me they do have Docker rootless now, but like not needing root for me was like the big thing with Podman. I was like, yeah, this is what I want in life. That That was a big reason I made the switch.
It might make me revamp how I'm doing some things during the weekend if I take another look at it. But I do miss the ability of being in small companies where like I was root on way too many things.
I love not having root access to anything I don't need root access to. I just from that security and compliance part of my persona just is so happy every time I run into an RBAC wall. I'm like, yes, thank you. And then I have to go through some process. Anyway, but you were getting ready to go through your demo, so sorry to interrupt you. That is how we do here. We just interrupt as we want. It's not a very serious live stream.
No, that's perfect. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. So we've got for demo, there's an attacker. There's 4 targets on AWS. They kind of look like this. There's 4 targets, have some legacy systems that are inside of there. You won't really get to see all of them get exploited because the way that Bookcrack works, it does create a giant word list for this thing to go through. It takes like 96 hours for it to actually complete. But the custom tooling that people can find inside of the repository and repurpose by themselves, I'm also going to break this up into separate repositories so that it's not just one amorphous blob that people are trying to run through, so that the AWS setup, and I'm going to add GCP into there as well so that people can spin up their own environments with things that they want to mimic the systems that they have. Bookcrack's going to be its own separate repository if they need to do natural language processing password word lists. Multi-Tor is going to be another one that pops out. The pen test rec is a recorder to record the screen as I was going. That was a thing that I tended to forget when I was pen testing as well. I'd be like, man, what did I do to actually exploit that system? Oh, it was a whole bunch of commands I do not remember. And I remember angrily screaming at the keyboard while I was doing it. And then a non-serif is something that I ported directly over from Parrot OS. I'd like to really like call out the Parrot team for being as amazing as they are when they built an operating system. Not only did they build a pen testing operating system, they built just a regular general purpose operating system that was privacy focused first. So a non-serif comes in both of those kinds of packages. It's not just for hucking random attacks at people when they ask you to, or don't ask you to. Every now and again, people become accidental victims of a pen test. So talking about the tooling a little bit, Bookcrack was a thing that was really the main thing I wanted to show off during the presentation itself when I was at SecNerds, which also that was my first time in San Francisco. I had a wonderful time hanging out with everybody. There is a beautiful community of people that are out there trying to make the world a better place. And it felt really warm and welcoming to be out there. So I'd just like to thank everybody for that and hope it's not my first and only time being there. But so we've got this targeted passphrase word list generator. And remember, I had a system on my network that had like a password in it that was from a book and then translated into Japanese I couldn't remember, which is what Romanju will be on there. But what it does is it runs out to the Internet Archive. It picks 60 curated books inside of the common thing that are just things that I'm interested in. So you'll see physics books and economic books and other things like that. Pulls out passages from it and then uses Spacey to lemmaticize it so that you can get chunks of words together to try and figure out what the passwords would be. And then it tends to mutate the passwords themselves in some type of leet speak kind of a way so that at the end of this thing, we get a word list that's out there. And yes, like other tools do exist out there that'll do this for like Rainbow Crack and other different things that you'll see in like Kali and other operating systems that also do offensive security. But like, why not make my own? Because it's fun to have my own stuff, right? And then remember, this is just stuff that I did because a friend asked me to generate traffic and I didn't want to generate boring traffic. So I wanted to make sure that I came from different IP addresses. I looked like multiple different things were coming at them. And I thought it would be really funny if they actually saw like different quotes from books that they had recognized come through over their wire. So there's a mutation engine inside of this thing. So it's going to take like to be or not to be and remove spaces inside of there. It's going to convert it to leet speak. It can change it from different cases, put underscores in there, do acronyms in case you're using like the beginning letter of each word that's going to be in there inside of your password. And then there's a -- translate portion of the tool itself where it'll run out to another service to translate things into different languages. I learned Spanish when I was growing up inside of high school. I don't remember any of it now, despite all the work the people that I worked with in kitchens tried to put Spanish back into my head with. And Japanese, I lived there for a couple of years. It still falls out of my head like it's cool. After a couple of beers, they do tend to merge together inside of my head, and I will scream multiple languages at people. It's great. So how multi-Tor works, it's just a distributed anonymous attack surface. It spins up 10 parallel Tor circuits. You can use proxy change with the round robin flag inside of there to come from one of these different services at each time for each different type of attack that comes in there. The main reason I started to look into that was so that I wouldn't get banned from other different services if I was doing reconnaissance with Nmap or other different types of tools like FastFuzz or other tool just escapes my brain right now. Or let's say like I find an exploitable service and I'm coming over that service with like Hydra, another tool that's going to be there. I wanted to put some level of cloaking between the different types of attacks that were going to be there. And again, as a defender in the life that I'm in right now and another job that I was at, I know kind of the pain of we have all these attacks coming in during a DDoS and you're trying to do research in each one of the IPs that are going to be in there. So it really was to put a little bit more of a smoke shield in front of the attacker towards the defenders as it was coming in. The Pinterest recorder does exactly what it sounds like. It records, it reports, and it replays things. You get a markdown file for all the different findings that you're going to have found inside of the system during the reconnaissance stage or the exploitation stage of what you're trying to do. And then you have a report that you can submit for a client or keep for yourself if you're on the nefarious side of the fence to see what you found during the system and come back at a later time. This would be the point where I run into the live demo. So I'm going to exit slides. And
oh wow, did you sacrifice adequately to the demo gods ahead of this?
There is a series of broken old computers around me that hopefully nobody else on the stream can see. But
no,
yeah,
we can't see them.
I took an old Palm Pilot and I shattered it over my head and screamed out, "I have the power."
Okay, all right, good, because yeah, that's really the trick here.
It happens. All right, let's see if I remember.
Also, if you can zoom in on your terminal here so that it can be more readable to the folks at home. Although, I mean, we're all at home, but you know what I mean. I recognize the wrapping may get weird, but wow, you might be able to control plus it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I use one of those split keyboards right now, and I totally forgot where I changed the outline of the keyboard are, and I can't remember where plus is.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So I've been working on adapting to a split keyboard as well. I got myself a Keyboardio following my shoulder surgery because it allows me to keep my shoulder like very well aligned. So which one did you go with?
So I started with the Ergo docks. So I bought these used on eBay, and they came in, and I actually absolutely fell in love with it just because having my hands spread out reduced a lot of the tension in my shoulders as well. I also used to swing big, heavy things at people in a combative kind of a way. So I understand the strain your shoulders might have been in that kind of situation. I am absolutely in love with these. That is gorgeous.
It's beautiful. It's super beautiful. The complete segue out of whatever we were doing. Sorry, folks. The way it works is there's a Cat 6 cable that connects the sides so that you can, whatever size Cat 6 cable you have, will give you whatever range you need. All these keycaps can be replaced. I also got mine used off eBay, but it was like the full package of all the things. It's RGB, rainbows, beautiful. But what I like the most is this round. I don't know if you can wait. Where's my camera? There we go. Round thing. This allows me to really adjust the height and rotation. Yeah, Luke, we are the same person at heart with our big gregarious spirits and loud voices that didn't use the microphone at the conference. No. The voices do it for us. In fact, I have my microphone to hopefully not grab my entire voice at all times because I have such a big voice for such a small person.
So I played D&D with a bunch of people that I was in a SOC with in GP, and I get called out all the time for how unbelievably loud I am on Discord. I also know when I'm at work, you definitely hear what opinions that I have because people down the row are repeating back to me whenever I say things. So it's kind of that other way. Another product I'll shout out is I have a Voyager as well as a split keyboard. This is one of the most enjoyable things I think I've ever typed on in my entire life, but it has less keys on it, so I have to really remind myself which layer of key I'm typing in at the time. And I'm still going through the Mavis Beacon teaches typing version of the game that they have when this thing comes out, and I absolutely adore what they have. It was a good gift to myself. I'll definitely say that one at least. But
gifts from me to me are the best gifts. I'm so thoughtful and I know exactly what I like.
Yeah, I feel bad when people try and get me something and I'm like, I already bought that.
No, people have given up buying me gifts. Nobody buys me presents because they know you. Yes, Luke, you do want a split keyboard. 10 of 10, you should do it. I don't have opinions on which one you get. Just get one.
No, definitely 100% commit. The thing that I tried to run down the rabbit hole first was printing my own and then soldering my own because, hey, why not learn a new skill? I'm really bad at soldering, so it's not something that I really should have tried. But Dactyl, D-A-C-T-Y-L, is the keyboard that I was trying to build at the time. Kind of looks a little bit like what Hilliary has, but they're recessed a little bit. They have like a little concave in there, and it looked like it was a little bit more comfortable to type on. But that itself is a total rabbit hole. Some people have some beautiful things that they've built with that kind of a thing. If you like touring through Google Images or Reddit on that thing. And again, the adult ADD today is real. This is beautiful.
Oh, this is how this stream goes always. If we can finish we've never finished an entire stream 100% on topic, I don't think. That's not who we are as people. I know you didn't get a chance to meet Johnny yet. He'll be here next week. Other longtime viewers like rHope9, who's been with us from like I think stream 1 practically, certainly as long as I've been the stream host, will know that Johnny and I are very not serious, very not attentive, very quick to fall down the rabbit hole type of people. And the point of this stream is to have a good time. That's also why we are even here today and setting the stage for this. Demo looks readable to me. Can somebody at home just confirm that the like the what do you call it? The terminal. I'm going to ask rHope9 specifically to chime in, please. And then I will wait and pause because there is a delay between when they send us a chat message and when we see it, sometimes of like up to a minute.
Aha, that's where my plus sign is.
Yay, you found it. Good job.
Yay.
You get a cookie.
Woohoo!
Just visit any website. Your browser will pick it up immediately. Okay.
That broke me for a second. That was beautiful.
You're welcome. All right, your terminal is readable. We have confirmation.
Right. Perfect. So inside of the pen test repository, right? If you go to the GitHub that I'm going to flash again, just because I'm that kind of a person, it will show you the different files that are inside of there. If you go into something in some Nix operating systems and you do like they have different ways that you can set things up to where your environment or automatically put yourself with the different services that you need inside of it. I've done that for a Pyro project that I have for myself, but I haven't done that for this one yet. That's going to be another upgrade that we have. But just running through the things really fast. The agents only exist in there to try and get this thing going up for the demo because I was using Claude very efficiently for this one. And I was like, hey, just build this whole thing out for me and make sure everything works. And that's what the agents folder is. Bookcrack README describes how bookcrack.py works and how the bookcrack shell.nix file exists inside of the build when the operating system goes to build. Configuration.nix builds the actual operating system itself. Demo is what we're going to run through. The 30-minute demo is one that I had recorded using Pentest Rec. In case things went sideways, I could have a GIF to show the output of the things that actually occurred on the system. And I'll show that one too so people can see the end of the report itself. Flake.nix is another way of versioning things inside of Nix where you get a little bit more control over different things that are going to be there. You could think of it like separation of concerns when it comes to web development kind of stuff. Pentest tools is everything that we stole from Parrot OS's operating system. Thanks guys for that one. And then the post-install setup sets up the different services for the AWS machines that are there. And the other one is inside of not the demo folder, but the demo folder is just the different bash scripts that we have for demoing 30 minutes because I had a 30-minute slot. There's an hour-long slot for the other demo one that's going to be there. It goes through a lot of different things that are part of it. I didn't throw the network diagram into Draw.io so that people could see how things are segmented in there, but the repository does have that kind of stuff there. Setup attacker.
I did post the repository link if people didn't see it and you scroll back up through the chat history. I did post a link to his repository in the stream chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that one. I'm also accepting pull requests and all those other things. Even if you want to like make fun of me for doing this thing, I'm all ears for anything. But we have setting up targets, setting up the web server, setting up the legacy services for that's going to be in there. If you run the deploy, I need to type demo first. Come on, Tom. You know how keyboards work. Yes, you do. It'll show you the different things that occur inside of the file. So you could just spin up the infrastructure itself. You could spin it down. You could SSH into it. You could SSH into the targets that you're trying to get into. You can see what status is there and what the IPs of the things are in there so that you can actually SSH into the targets. The only thing that you need to do for this thing when you actually set it up is do the AWS configure command and put in the secret tokens that you would need for the permissions that are going to be in there. The demo portion of the repository should have the policies that you would need to set up for the VPC and the different users, that the IAM users that you're going to need inside of AWS so that things are secure in the type of way that we want. But I've already logged in with the SSH thing up here to show off that the book cache happens after the book crack file is run. I had Hydra running in the background, so that's why that restore file is there. And then there's the two demo things that are there. NLTK data and Spacey data, they get created during the build as well. So running back to other tab where things have actually happened. If you run that /demo 30-minute thing, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to launch you into a pen test rec session so that you could record all the things that are going on. You got your target set up. It checks for the tools that we've installed so that we can do the recon and exploitation of the services that we have. We make sure the targets are actually there, and we check to see if the targets have services running that we know are deliberately exploitable. And then we start seeing if we come through different types of Tor circuits. So multi-Tor starts with 10 instances, and this time you can run that up to as many as you have open ports, but your mileage may vary when it comes to that kind of a thing. This is just the command line telling us that we are connected through multi-Tor. Proxy chains puts its configuration in this kind of a folder, and usage and proxy chains will just, you could run not just Hydra, but other different tools to come through the different types of Tor nodes that you're running through in that kind of a way. So if you wanted to drive some defenders absolutely crazy, you could just curl a website with this thing a whole bunch of different times, but don't do that because remember, crime's still crime, even if it's funny. So we test the multi-Tor to see what different IPs are going to be there. And if you're using this type of a test locally or in a defender kind of an aspect of things, you're going to want these IPs so that you can give these to your defenders so that they could start building back that attack path from the IPs that are coming through. They could start correlating all the logs together from the different traffic that's there and then see if it's really an attack that you were doing or an attack that somebody else was doing during the time of the test, because other illegitimate actors might not come in during the designated pen test time, but sometimes they can. So the next thing that this thing does is it starts doing the subnet recon. It's going to run nmap scripts to try and figure out what open services that we have, what other things would be exploitable, so that we can then start doing the different types of attacks that are going to be there. And then it starts generating the word list from the different literary classics that we have. So this one just took the popular books, which is 60 of my favorite types of categories that exist inside of the Internet Archive. Takes 3 books with min words of 2 and a max words of 6, and 6 is the biggest length that we have, and pops them inside of the demo word list. So you can see in this kind of example right here, we go to Moby Dick by Herman Melville, and it starts pulling out different types of passwords that are going to be in there. It finds 2,400 different candidate passages that are going to be there, lemmaticizes them into unique forms, and then we get 223,917 different password candidates just from that one book. So let's say if you're doing password cracking, or you have a specific target that you're trying to get information from inside of your system, or inside of the scope of your pen test, or like maybe a family member forgot how to get into something and you know that they're a big fan of this type of book or that type of book or that type of song lyrics, you could pop that into this type of a system, get all the different types of mutations that their password can take, and then roll forward in your assessment in that kind of a way. So you can see that the mutations have different types of ways that they're going to appear. And then the next thing that the thing starts to do is it looks at that first targeted service that's up there and starts to attack that machine's vulnerable web page with the different types of passwords that are going to be there. Now, again, I'll highlight that Hydra was going to take like 90 something hours, which is why it's not going to be something that we're going to actually solve on this view itself. But if I log right in, I could do something like Hydra, I think it's ~R for Hydra restore, and then the attack will just start keep going when things are going on that. So you could still background and foreground tasks that are going to be there. If you're like one of those recon, cyber intel, I forgot what we call when you're like actually not attacking the people back, but I don't know, just aggressive defense is what I'll probably refer to it right now as. If you're like trying to see if you can get into like an actors panel and things like that, you can jitter the delay so that you're not trying to trigger different types of password resets or let them know that you're there watching them as well. But it would run through all those different types of attacks for the demo thing right there. And I'm going to pull up the GIF so that we can get a little further down in things. Now this should be one that I could just, there we go, pull up in that one. So there is multi-Tor starting, testing things as it's going. They also, pen test rec only records the entire session. So if there's a real big long delay, I was probably taking a sip of coffee before I hit enter for the next thing to actually happen. So now we're generating that word list that's going to be there. Be kind to the Internet Archive. If you're going to do these things, cache these results so that you don't destroy their systems. Not the way that I did it, but definitely something I'm going to add into things. But you see Hydra going to do the attack, different types of SQL injections that it was found in other types of systems that I had specifically put vulnerable services that are in there so that I could see the logs coming out of each one of these devices. Because again, think of me in my daily life, like I'm a detection engineer. At the end of this thing, I want to know what logs happened at what time so that I can build out the detections appropriately, and then have different types of API calls into my logging systems to pull the information for the analyst and present it to them up front. It's one of the things that I think are really useful when it comes to Palantir's alerting detection strategies. You can put them inside of a Jupyter notebook, put a Splunk API key inside of that thing, and then start pulling all of your defensive logs from each one of the things that are going to be there. And I had mentioned that I'm trying to spin this up and spin this down in a way where I'll output those types of things that are going to be there. That's one of the end goals for the project itself, is to pull down a vulnerability report, spin up a test environment so that vulnerability could be tested, and then at the end of it, have Claude output an alert and detection strategy for analysts to use when something actually occurs. And that is pretty much my entire crime is still crime. If you're going to do this thing, make sure that you have the appropriate permissions to do this thing. But that might be the end of me. Outside of, there were some lessons that I learned while I was doing this. You have to git add before every rebuild when you're using flakes. The NixOS AMI is a lot easier to use than the NixOS infect command. If you have an Ubuntu machine or any other machine that you'd like to convert over to NixOS, that's the command that can do it. It's a little frail, a little fragile. Things might break in the process, but if you're like taking this path, going from like Arch down into NixOS or just diving into NixOS itself, you like pain and you like to see errors inside of your terminal because it gives you something else to learn about and something else to do. Definitely pre-bake your demos with ASCII Cinema when you get that chance to do it, just because like a really good cooking show, things can go sideways. The demo gods might not respect the Palm Pilot that I shouted over my head before this thing started, and things might fail. For the system that I had set up, PIT doesn't really exist. You're going to have to plan for that. So I was curling in the Spacey models and building them from scratch inside of that. And when I say I did that, I didn't do that. My French intern, Claude, did that for me.
I love that you call Claude the French intern.
I have to say that I stole that joke from somebody else.
That person's a genius.
But
all right, cool. So I'll take over the screen share.
Nope, I appreciate it.
And remember, the way this actually went down at the conference was Tom and I, never having met, never having spoken before, some of the things he talked about are exactly in what I talk about. Like some of you mentioned like automatic, like pen test write-up documentation. There were a couple other things, right? And so the thing that I did is saying, I don't want to go full screen on this because I don't want to open my laptop up and have multiple screens going instead of my one giant monitor. So let me see if I can get this pretty enough for the moment.
I thought you ran into that kernel panic.
Oh God, it's a fear that I have that will happen in the middle of this. Tom knows this. I have a corrupted RAM stick on this computer, and until I get between now and when I get Lenovo out to come change that, I am just praying that this computer does not kernel panic on me during today's stream. I actually have offloaded my development to a different computer. Red Hat overnighted me a loaner laptop because they are great. And so I'm not having to fight through that to get my job done. I just now have to deal with scheduling Lenovo. And scheduling them to come to my house and do a repair while I have a dog recovering from surgery is not high on my list of activities that I feel like dealing with today. Anyhow, so that said, so my talk was called the Cyber Riposte. And the idea generally is, the theory is that you can use AI to like, instead of just doing defense against attackers like our good friend Tom, turn it into defense. So scan him back, create a dossier about him. That way you can either use it for yourself or turn it over to authorities, depending. This is where I have to kind of have the same disclaimer, right? Red Hat doesn't encourage you to do that. Red Hat gives me the opportunity to sit here on the stream and tell you about a thing we might be able to do for funsies because it's all about like knowledge sharing and engineering experimentation and learning from each other, and not because we actually encourage you to do these types of things. I will tell you very honestly, I would never, ever, ever be allowed to do these things in production. It's all about, if anything does happen, it would be all about defense. Not letting somebody run around and like run into honey pots or honey tokens or anything of that nature. That said, what you should think of this as is something that Red Hat does every year. Internally, every year we do a capture the flag. And so look at this as if you were going to use it as a capture, do it for a capture the flag game. Play capture the flag this way. Learn new. You can learn new skills. It's entertainment and educational only. Don't do this. Okay.
Maybe do this.
No, don't do this. Unless, you know, it's your job, and then do it, I guess. I don't know. It's an open source repo. You can have fun. I will flip over to it real quick. Here is my open source repo. I am also accepting pull requests. I'm actually also working on building a quote unquote working scenario, which we'll get into because that'll be the actual part 2 of this duel that we will set up. This is here. I will copy the link to it in the chat. This is, at this point, all AI generated. I have not gone through the review session. My connectivity is really iffy right now. Let's hope this holds up. So anyway, that said, the idea behind my presentation was that, let me see if I can make this a little bit more readable. I was asked to present at SecNerds SF very last minute. I had about 2 weeks to prepare, and I didn't actually have free time in that 2 weeks. So I actually had 2 days to prepare. And then the person who asked me to do it asked if I would use fencing metaphors in my talk again, because he has seen me use fencing metaphors in previous talks. Folks who've been around a long time know that I teach and compete in historical European martial arts, or at least I did before I had to have some surgeries. You will see you will see a bunch of my swords back here. And I'm actually wearing my HEMA coach shirt today because today I'm your HEMA coach, not your engineering expert. That said, the metaphor is basically these are not all of the fencing terms, by the way. I didn't make myself completely crazy. So you have feint, distance and tempo, parries, and riposte. And so the idea here, like this presentation is more so focused on the parry and riposte pattern. Feinting and distance and tempo, distance and tempo is like, that's how you're going to be successful with a parry, with a riposte, with a feint, any of that. So, you know, order is unimportant, obviously, in this slide. All of these pictures, a couple of them are actually me. But all these pictures are either my HEMA friends or my HEMA clubmates. And again, HEMA is historical European martial arts. So the idea in like fencing, and this title, this one is the psychology of the strip. Strip being a fencing strip. We use rings in HEMA, but it's fine. In competitive fencing, right, you want to control the game. You want to control the distance. You want to control the movements. You want to like get control of what your opponent is going to do. You want to influence them to make the decisions you want them to make. And the idea behind this cyber counterattack or this cyber riposte is that you are going to influence what your attacker does, what their next move is. So for those who are not aware, this is kind of like what you would see. Tom actually demonstrates some of these in his presentation ahead of us. So living off the land, habitual setups, right, are things like the type of traffic, the things like VPN utilization. There's a bunch of things in there. Feints would be things like, you know, looking at multiple things and then going further down something you as the attacker know is not what you're after, to try to distract from you continuing to probe down what you're actually going for, right? And then leveraging context blindness. So a lot of legacy systems don't have observability data. And I have a copy, hang on, to the bookshelf. Ah, no! I dropped it. It's fine. That's what I get for putting things in front of my books. The book that I just published with Andy and Rob earlier this year, we talk about the importance of enriching your observability data with additional context. As a defender, as a reliability engineer, context-rich observability data is the thing you need. It is the tool that you need in your toolbox to help you to identify things accurately and to respond to them accurately and quickly, to reduce your time to respond, to reduce that distance and gain control of that tempo, if you will. The way you do this varies depending on your architecture. This would be things like you could, in Kubernetes environments, you can make sure that you're collecting things like the pod names, UUIDs, namespaces. You want to get the information about user agents and source IPs. Anything about sessions, if you've got some sort of session IDs, anything that you want that you can have that you can then correlate into like a picture of what's happening. Because then when you have that picture of what's normal, you are going to be more easily able to identify a picture of what's not normal. So if a session ID stays the same, but the IP address changes locations, that's probably a problem. That's just would be an example of something that could be ungood. Ungood, yeah. That was your Orwell for you today. Basically benefiting from context blindness. And there's lots of different techniques for how to do this. And a lot of what we talk about, especially on this channel and in my professional work, is going to be about like Kubernetes environments and cloud native environments. Serverless kind of works the same because it's still basically containers. But you can do it in other environments as well by just like programmatically adding in that additional context information. So you can add process IDs, basically some sort of decorators to whatever is happening to kind of to enrich that context. So basically modernizing observability however you can, wherever you can, is really going to be very important so that you can't have this used against you. Is it true my favorite movie is The Princess Bride? If it's not my favorite, it's very, very high up there. I would have to think about that harder to determine what my actual favorite is. Anyway, so scrolling up because I refused to do the presentation mode, even though that would have made my life easier. Deconstructing the feint, right? So what is a feint? So a feint is a false attack designed to collect data on how an opposing fencer will react. So I want to know kind of like one thing that's very common to do is just like stomping your foot out in front of you to see if your opponent's jumpy, right? I'm not jumpy. If you do that to me, I'm very unlikely to move, which also can then be turned and used against me because you could do that and then immediately actually attack and I may not be ready, right? So you use feints to probe and get an idea of your opponent. So this is what your attacker is going to be doing to you, but also what you can turn around and do to your attacker. And so one way that you can kind of identify feints in a situation where you're on the defense is, again, context-enriched observability data, a lot of it, and then use AI agents to analyze it. Now, AI has its challenges still. Like, I want to be very clear that, like, it still can hallucinate. There's context windows are a real thing. There are things that you can do to kind of like help make that easier with sampling and some other things. But realistically, it can still process more accurately high volumes of observability data than we can as people. So just because it can do so much at one time, or like you can have multiple little small language models and like smaller agents doing a bunch of stuff, and like they can be comparing notes and all kinds of stuff, right? So however you are doing it, and again, this is all still very largely theoretical because what Tom and I will do is put this idea to the test. So you're going to identify what is a feint and what is real by having really solid observability data. That's going to be that's me bringing that reliability practitioner to the security context. I think this is one of the most important pieces. And then this allows you to get to the parry, which allows you to respond. A parry needs to be not just a correction to keep you safe, but it needs to be a correction with the correct amount of intention and force. And yeah, intention and force are different. And I think I'm going to struggle to explain this well this morning because I'm tired and I'm mostly living on coffee today that I still haven't finished. So force is like literal power, but intention is more about not just how much you're putting into it, but the direction you're putting into it and the next step you have planned after your parry. So if I have, what you actually see, this is me, by the way, this is the back of me in an actual sparring match against somebody. So he came in for kind of this, and I just did a very simple parry. We call it a simple parry. Sometimes you'll hear me call it a no shit parry, because it's quick. And the strongest point of my sword is applying pressure to the weakest point of his sword. And then from there, the next action, like the way I parry, a little bit dictates the next action I can take. So it is an oh shit parry, but it's actually a very strong parry because I have a lot of different things that I can now do from this position. And so that is when I say intention and force, that's what you want to do. And so in this case, like technical stack, automated prevention and mitigation is it. And like realistically in a production environment, this is where it stops, right? And then maybe you spin up an incident report and do some other stuff, right? And so on. But like in terms of like technical implementation in a production environment, this is where it stops, right? You've got some automated detection and some automated mitigation that occurs. You can use GitOps for that, very obviously. You can keep a human in the loop even, or you can get a human out of the loop and let it all be AI driven. That is kind of a you decision to make. I definitely recommend doing it as code, however you decide to do your mitigations and automation. That way it is completely auditable. That is really, really important in especially the context of security and compliance, that actions have audit, like you can audit the whole action chain. Really, really, really important. But from the parry, that is where you then execute the riposte. And the riposte is the counterattack. And this is where we get into, this is for fun and education, not something I am recommending you to actually implement in production. But, maybe you could do it in theory, but don't. So
who amongst us wouldn't put RMRF in a VBA file that looks like someone should take it when they get into a system? Like, let the macro do what the macro is supposed to do.
Crime is still crime, even if it's funny.
Crime is still crime.
Also, you could be violating your own company policies. Just don't do bad things. Don't do things you shouldn't do. Look at us. We're almost to the top of the hour, so I'm going to hurry this up. So executing the riposte, right, is counterattacking while also anticipating what your opponent will be doing after you parry. Because remember, they're still trying to hit you. They don't stop trying to hit you just because you stopped them from hitting you the one time, right? And that is where we get into the idea that I have around this let me get to the next thing. Around this pipeline that results in automated behaviors. You need the right counterattack for the right attack. Again, identifying which attacks are real, which ones are not real will help you with that. And this is the actual engine. So you do the training of the engine. And by the way, a lot of this can be done with like lower level AI models or even no AI at all, just pure automation. And the repository that I linked does have some just like pure automation up. And there's nothing wrong with straight up automation carrying out things like that, by the way. Like I would trust that. I would be hesitant on trusting AI in a production environment at this point in time. That could be different in a year. But just straight up automation, like agents, the way we used to mean agents when we said that programmatically, nothing wrong with that, right? Because it's going to be a very defined set of action pools that it works on. And you can give the same set of action pools to AI and it theoretically should follow them, but also sometimes it doesn't. So, but you've got your training, right? You have real-time data to train your models on or to train your environment on. And then you have data pipelines that are ingesting what is happening now. And that allows for that baseline behavior to be kind of understood so that anomaly detection can occur. And then that orchestration layer, final piece is like, okay, an anomaly has been occurred, and now we're going to take out, now we're going to basically act. We're going to counter this. We're going to pair it. And so for that, you can use, have like I said, an action pool, set of actions that are around some templates that can be quickly leveraged and adjusted in order to kind of like, and applied via GitOps in order to do things like deploy honey tokens real time, or actually a honeypot or whatever it is. And the reason why you would potentially be doing that in this scenario, which I call the mirror, and it is in the repository, is what you're basically doing is in fencing, fighting somebody who exactly mirrors your behavior is very, very irritating. If you ever played Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and you go to the water temple and you have to do Shadow Link, and he's very annoying the first time, it's because he's mirroring you, right? It's very irritating. So it's less irritating as an adult now that I know what I'm looking for, as opposed to when I was a kid. It really, really frustrated me when I was young, first time I played through it. But anyway, right, but you still can have a series of things around it. So the AI doesn't have to invent or not invent much, and you still have a way of applying it, like either through GitOps, or if GitOps isn't fast enough, you could do it local, but still have it commit back what it has done, so that you can use something like, I think it's Flux that can go back and do, I made a change in my live environment, and now I needed to go back into my GitOps thing. I think it's that one. I don't remember. I'm the worst GitOps host ever, apparently, because I forget how the tools worked. And that allows you to basically start turning theoretically start turning your defenses into an attack. So spin up your honeypots, rewrite firewall tools based on like where you think they're going to go, kind of like herd them into a corner, isolate the assets that you want to make sure to protect. You can like basically use network policies to temporarily just like shut things down, or like isolate workloads so that like it's now all on one node, and that node is like got some level of network isolation from everything else. Meanwhile, you're scanning your opponent back. You're using like this open source suite of things. Tom, you showed a bunch of those. So like get their IP address, get it, build a dossier, build an understanding of them, which then you can then use, and you can manage your distance and manage the timing of all of these things by kind of like implementation details, site details, and also again deciding where things are going to go. And I can't deal with how much I'm cutting out today, so sorry guys. This is the slide we're going to end on. That's my friend Max in the blue there, and as the best distance and timing image I could find. I think it's fantastic. He sent that to me. So what does this mean for us next week, right? The repository that I've set up, Tom has access to, so he's going to be able to kind of create a good attack situation. We are going to spin up an OpenShift cluster. I need to give you some entry point, Tom. We need to decide what that entry point is that I'm going to give you. And then we will see if my OpenShift environment with my AI cyber defense agent in place can actually prevent Tom from capturing the flag. And so we will have a real flag, and we will have a fake, and we'll have some fake flags, right? So we are going to basically play a live capture the flag game next week. Hopefully we can fit it into an hour. If we can't, I think we can run over. At least I'll be able to. And what was that?
I said I totally will be able to. Like I'm like the dog with the bone. When I see something I need to attack, I'll just keep going until I fall down. I too am powered by golf.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I know Our Hope 9 has multiple times said, can we just do 2-hour episodes when it's a really interesting topic? I don't know if Johnny will be able to stick around the whole time because he's in the UK now. No, I'm actually not using Red Hat's compliance operator. If that is what you're asking, Our Hope 9. I am just on my own little island of capture the flag gamification. That is what this is. This is a capture the flag game. Could you do something like that with existing tools and so forth? Absolutely, probably. That's just not what we're doing today. or next week, as it were. So yeah, that's the stage. These are the talks that we gave back to back. And then I was like, hey, Tom, are you a sucker who wants to be on a podcast? And I think his answer was yes.
Totally. Like, yeah. I saw an opportunity to get out and tell people, like, look how cool I think this project is, and look how cool I think your project is as well. Like, I was dancing on my toes in the back of the room as you were going through each one of the slides the first time I saw it, because I saw all the applications that I could use this thing for and all the different ways that I could incorporate it into my defensive posture and stack, be it at home or at work. And I just got super excited that there was another way to break this type of thing down to people who understand. They've seen sword fights in movies. They understand the stakes that are at play, and applying that to the digital stakes that are in front of them humanizes it a little bit more, I think, inside of their brains.
I'm glad you feel that way. This was 90% me just combining two things I really like.
I had like one of the best times being in that crowd.
Oh, I love that.
I was trying not to be too loud and be that guy just like screaming out in the middle of it.
That is, by the way, for people who've never seen it, this photo is me in my full kit with my rose mask. And I was really proud of this keep in touch pun, by the way. It's just one of those little things, because they call actually, like, you know, landing. It's like landing the touch. Keep in touch. Anyway, thank you. I'll be here all week. The QR code, a lot of you already follow me on LinkedIn, so that's probably not that exciting. But the GitHub repo, if you didn't catch the link in the chat or whatever, or you are not looking at the chat, but you're looking at the screen. I know most people listen to this versus watch it, so you missed out on some great slides if you didn't pay attention. Well, there is a QR code here to the GitHub repository. Everything that I'm doing is open source to the MIT license, but again, educational and entertainment purposes only. Crime is still crime. Compliance violations are still compliance violations, even when it's fun.
What happens on localhost stays on localhost.
Correct. Right. So next week we will be back at the same time, not in the same place. I'll actually be in New York next week for funsies. And so I'll be streaming from a hotel room, and we'll hope that the Wi-Fi there holds up to what I need it to hold up. Otherwise, you're going to be playing against Johnny, and Johnny does not know the game.
If you get stuck, you're always welcome to come to Staten Island and use my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, there we go.
People on my Wi-Fi network.
Anyway, so yeah, we will be back next week in a very unusual set of circumstances for this stream. Instead of streaming every 2 weeks, we are streaming 3 weeks in a row, and that's how I'm making up my long absence to you, the viewers. You're welcome. Tom, did you have anything else to add about the duel next week from your perspective?
Nothing. I'm just hoping that I could actually get to the legitimate flag and that your defenses don't stop me. But as the defender at heart, I want to be stopped because I love the way that the repository is put together. Some of the defenses that you mentioned, I have incorporated in my own home lab and other labs that I've built or the networks that I've been a part of. So it's exciting to see other people on that same kind of a thought train. But no, I've got nothing but more Claude tokens to throw at this thing and see what we get going.
Yes, I love that for us. Okay, cool. So we are a little bit over time, and that is okay. So until next week, kind viewers, I will remind you, as always, to choose your technical debt wisely, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.